Starfleet Academy has started its first semester and has just handed in its first assignment. What grade did it earn? Stick around and find out.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Welcome to Cena Nerd's Blur Trek, last week in Star Trek, for the week ending January 18, 2026. So they did it. They actually did it. For years, we've been talking about this show, Starfleet Academy. And let's be honest, this series has maybe had the heaviest lift in modern Star Trek history. It's landing in the franchise's 60th anniversary, and a franchise that has defined sci-fi and shaped so many of our lives. It had to win over the legacy fans who live and breathe canon. It had to bring in a whole new generation, and it had to do it all while carrying the weight of a 60-year legacy. The question was just never, will it be good? It was, will it feel like Star Trek? As a lifelong fan who has seen the best of modern Trek and some, let's just call it, questionable choices, I was cautiously optimistic. The pressure was huge. But after watching the 2-episode premiere on Paramount Plus, Kids These Days, and beta test, I'm here to tell you, they didn't just pass the test. They set a bold new course for what a Trek can be in 2026, and of course in universe in the 32nd century. In this video, I'm going to give you my honest, spoiler-filled reaction to how this new series introduces its characters, raises the stakes for the Federation, and respects the past without being trapped by it. For those of you who are on the fence, here's my simple spoiler-free take. It's fantastic, it's hopeful, it's fun, and it's absolutely Star Trek. It's not Star Trek 90210 or a CW show in space or Starfleet Hogwarts. You should watch it. So, with that all being said, let's jump right into the review. And so, the first thing I want to just really touch on first is the weight of a legacy. Now, before we get into the characters and the plot, we have to talk the tightrope this show is walking. Set in the 32nd century, over 100 years after the galaxy-wide catastrophe known as the Burn, Starfleet Academy isn't just about kids in school. It's about the first new class of Starfleet cadets in more than a century. A generation born into a broken galaxy, now tasked with being the face of its rebirth. The showrunners made a brilliant choice right away by setting the series not just on a rebuilt campus in San Francisco, but primarily aboard USS Athena, a starship that serves as a modern classroom and a modern academy. This isn't just school, it's a school on the front lines. The theme of rebuilding is baked right into the premise. The Federation is re-expanding, trying to convince old allies to rejoin and heal the wounds that are from the burn that are still very, very raw. The setting gives us the perfect Trek blend of philosophical debate and genuine high-stakes adventure. The classroom can literally warp into a diplomatic crisis at a moment's notice. This era, inherited from Star Trek Discovery, is fertile ground for drama. The galaxy isn't the stable, predictable place we knew from the 23rd and 24th century. The name Federation doesn't automatically mean what it used to be. The challenge for Starfleet Academy was to take this somewhat grim reality and fill it with the core optimism that defines Star Trek. The question that has always powered the franchise, which is this: can we be better? Is no longer a theoretical exercise for these cadets. It's a daily, practical mission. How do you rebuild an institution to be better than before? How do you go from a crew when your new classmates are from species you've never met or even get along with? And another thing for me that was a line in the second episode is that most people want progress, but don't really want to change. And I think that was an in-universe nod towards those who are reluctant to accept this Starfleet Academy series concept. Now, the first 2 episodes definitely tackles these questions head on, proving that the writers do get Star Trek's greatest strengths has never been its technology, but its powerful ideas. So now with that set up, let's meet the new class. Now, as a show like this lives or dies by its ensemble, this cast is really off to a very promising start. The writers have done a good job of making us care about a whole new group in just 2 episodes. Now, the clear anchor for this series is a character named Caleb Mirror. He's played by newcomer Sandra Rosa, and Caleb is our way into this universe. But he's no wide-eyed farm boy. He's not. He is a cynical, rebellious human who has been on the run for most of his life. And he's deeply disillusioned with Starfleet and also what Starfleet means. He joins the Academy as part of a journey to find his mother, who was imprisoned by Starfleet 15 years ago. And we see that he is not there because he believes the mission, at least not at first. He's a survivor. He's learning about Starfleet's values right alongside the audience. And his journey from a savage loner to someone who has to lean and learn to rely on others is the very heart of the premiere and the second episode. The premiere also quickly introduces us to a diverse and intriguing group of fellow cadets. We meet Sam, Kazoyan hologram, who is the first of her kind at the Academy and is learning what it means to be alive. We just learned that she was literally activated just a few short days before her mission to the Academy. Then there's Jaden Krog, who is a Klingon who subverts expectations and also is a great steam sailor who is a scientist instead of a warrior. We also get a glimpse of other characters. For example, he's an ambitious Kyogan who starts a rival with Caleb, and he also has a very unique skill set of being able to survive very hostile environments, and we saw that in the pilot episode. And also we were introduced in the second episode of Tarima, and she is the daughter of the Beta Z president, who plays a key role in the second episode. And finally, we are introduced to Genesis Light, who is a admiral's daughter, determined to prove herself, but she's also quite the prankster, and we saw that throughout the pilot episode whenever the characters were first getting introduced to one another. Now, the premise quickly establishes their different personalities, their friendships and rivalries that will drive the show. And I will have to also say that the second episode, Beta Test, pivots from the high-stakes action that we saw in parts of the first episode to diplomacy, when a delegation of Beta Z arrived to discuss the rejoining the Federation. Caleb is tasked with showing the president's thought around, forcing him to confront what his future at the Academy is going to be and what it could actually mean. This classic Star Trek instantly forges new dynamics and reveals insights into our character. But by the end of the episode, these two episodes, with all these characters, they aren't just a class. You get to see the beginning of a crew. And it also is very refreshing is that these are raw cadets and not the seasoned, established characters and officers that we meet in other Star Trek series. Think of a young Jean-Luc Picard that we saw in the Next Generation episode Tapestry, when we had that flashback to his time at the Academy. That's the type of characters that we see, and also even lower decks with some of the younger officers that we met on the Cerritos. So with that being set up with our new cast, let's talk about Cadets from the past. And while the new cast is the future, the show's masterstroke, in my opinion, is how it integrates legacy characters into the show. This isn't just empty fan service. It's a meaningful passing of the torch. First, let's talk about the incredible Holly Hunter as Captain and Chancellor Nala Aki. She is the captain of the USS Athena and is the head of the Academy. Now, she may not be a legacy character in the sense where that we haven't seen her before in a live action or animation version of Star Trek that preceded the show. This is a race that we were introduced in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. She is over 400 years old and remembers the Federation before the burn. So she's not a perfect all-knowing headmistress, but she is a fascinating, flawed, and reluctant leader. In a stunning reveal, we learned it was Aki that whenever she was a Starfleet captain who presided over the case that sent Caleb's mother to prison 15 years ago, and with her being an accessory to the death and murder of a Starfleet officer. And that event seems to haunt Aki as far as the decisions that were made to separate Caleb's mother from Caleb. And so her decision to recruit Caleb to the Academy is deeply, deeply personal, creating a complex and pivotal relationship that forms the very emotional core of the show. Hunter's performance is, of course, very magnetic, very world-weary authority figure with a quirky maternal care. And then we can't talk about this new show without the return of Robert Picardo as the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. He is definitely one of the better executed integration of a legacy character into a new show. And now the Doctor is, of course, hundreds of years old because he is the original EMH. And he's a holographic instructor at the Academy. Now, this isn't just some quick cameo. It is the culmination of a character arc that we have seen span centuries in universe. He has evolved from the insecure EMH that we first met in Star Trek Voyager, and then he was a mentor. If you've watched Star Trek Prodigy, he was very prominent in that show with the young kids that was in Star Trek Prodigy. Then now we see him in Starfleet Academy as a wise and yes, still wonderfully grumpy elder statesman. He serves as a living bridge between the 24th century and the 32nd century, embodying Starfleet's enduring spirit. This show also brings back Admiral Vance and Jet Reno from Star Trek Discovery, which helps, again, blend and grounds the series firmly in the 32nd roots and 32nd century setting. So it's these moments, the smart use of beloved characters, that adds so much emotional weight that makes the show feel special. Now, did the Doctor return make you as happy to me? And I wasn't a big Star Trek Voyager fan, but I really enjoyed the Doctor character. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite legacy moment was so far in the first 2 episodes. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, let's move to our next section, which is rebuilding the future, not replicating the past. And I will say that because this show operates on 2 brilliant levels, the personal and the political. On the personal level, we have the season's villain, Nus Braka, played with delightful energy by Paul. Braka isn't just some random pirate. He's half Klingon, half Tellarite, with a deadly personal vendetta and a shared history between both Chancellor Key and Caleb. The premiere wastes no time tying our antagonist, protagonist, and mentor into a complex triangle of motivations and secrets, revealing that Braka holds the key to the whereabouts of Caleb's mother after she has escaped from prison. He was also the person who Caleb's mom had met 15 years prior, whenever she was looking for food for herself and Caleb, and of course was the accessory to the incident that led to the death of the Starfleet officer, which of course she got jailed for. So this sets up a brilliant engine for a character-driven conflict, with Caleb caught between the woman who imprisoned his mother and the man who knows where she is and was a proximate cause to her incarceration. But the show's ambition goes far beyond that. The second episode, Vendettas, expands the focus to the very meta stakes of the new Federation. And that plot revolves around the tense negotiations to bring the Vendettas back into the Federation. And we see it unfold in a classic Star Trek premise. We see Admiral Vance debating the future of Starfleet. Do we rebuild as we were, replicating the past? Or do we do something different this time? And to me, this just speaking directly to its own legacy as far as a show. It's a bold statement, and it's the cadets who help define a solution. The episode ends with Caleb starting to find his place in the Academy, realizing that unity and collaboration are the way forward. Starfleet Academy isn't just telling a story about rebuilding the Federation, it is the story about rebuilding the Federation and also the Star Trek franchise for the next 60 years. The message is very clear. You can honor the legacy of what came before, but have the courage to build something new. That right there, to me, is how this show passes the test. So, my honest reaction that Starfleet Academy is that it's so far a success. It works because it understands that the best Star Trek stories operate on a personal level and a thematic level. The personal stakes centered on Caleb's search for his mother and his complicated bond with Chancellor Key are what makes us care. The political and thematic stakes about the very future and philosophy of the Federation are what makes the show feel important and have stakes. The writers have woven together, to me, a fresh, compelling characters that we've met here so far, and also the legacy characters, into a narrative that feels both nostalgic and also refreshingly new. So to me, the 2 episode premiere definitely brought the high stakes drama, surprised the character arcs, and a powerful resonant theme about honoring the past while bravely forging a new future. And I am all in and excited for the future of Star Trek. So before we close, we have 2 more sections here: Observation Lounge and of course, the first one and the big one is the introduction of the show. So, of course, it is the 60th anniversary, and since the modern Trek period on Paramount Plus, we've had a little teaser where the lead hero ship that is the focus of the particular series does a spin around the Starfleet Delta. And so here, the new 60th anniversary franchise animation features most of the franchise's hero ships. We had the original Starship Enterprise, the Enterprise D from Next Generation, the USS Defiant from Deep Space Nine, USS Voyager from Voyager, obviously, the NX-1 Enterprise from Star Trek Enterprise, the USS Discovery from Star Trek Discovery, the Strange New Worlds era Enterprise, and of course now the new USS Athena from the Starfleet Academy show. Of course, don't get on me, y'all, because I know there are omissions. We have no Cerritos from Lower Decks. We also do not have the Protostar. So some folks are like, well, those shows are animation, but we also don't have the Enterprise E from the Next Generation era films, as well as the Star Trek Kelvin Enterprise for the movies that were out from 2009 to 2016. So it definitely is an issue of live action versus animation. Definitely, it just seems to me that probably it's a time issue. So maybe with the upcoming fourth season of Strange New Worlds, maybe they'll add the other ships in the animation for the other part of the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. Another observation I had was I love the in-universe diversity of characters, because we saw Picard, that was the big rock-looking creature that we saw in the second episode. The Rock Toe was the character in Star Trek Prodigy that character is based on. We also saw an Orion, the Saurian. The Saurian was the officer who was checking in Caleb and Jaden at the Academy whenever they were having their orientation and getting their uniforms and haircuts and whatnot. Of course, we saw the Vulcan instructor. We saw the person from Sharon, the person who white on one side, black on the other. That race was introduced in Let This Be Your Last Battlefield, which at the time said that they were the last of their kind, but clearly we've seen them now in this show as well as Section 31, so they're still around. So I'd like to hear an in-universe explanation about that. And then we saw some other races as well. Let me know in the comments if I missed any. But I liked how in-universe they used a real-world characteristic of one of the actors portraying the Beta Z president. He is hearing impaired in real life, and they interwove that into the story by using the American Sign Language, and so that was part of the communications that the people were using. So they used that very, very well, I thought, in the show, and it's been done before in Star Trek as well. It was done in a Next Generation episode. I think Loud as a Whisper, I think, was the episode back in the first season of Next Generation. We also, of course, is Star Trek, and it's 60 years, so we're going to get the name drops. We got the James T. Kirk Pavilion. We also got the Uhura and Hoshi Sato pavilions. The Uhura Pavilion was where they had the big discussions with the Beta Z. There was also callbacks to Trek 4, The Voyage Home. That's the one with the whales, with George and Gracie, the humpback whale that Caleb and the president's daughter saw there in the second episode, B Park, and that's where the Cadets were doing their drill. And Boothby was a character, we saw him in the Next Generation, and I believe also maybe in Voyager, but he was the groundskeeper for the Academy during Captain Picard's time, and also Wesley Crusher's time at the Academy. So he was a mentor, and so Boothby Park was in the show. We also got the War College nickname, the Mugatus, a creature a race that we saw in the original series. The episode, A Private Little War, he was the creature that had the little horn, and just a spoiler alert, I think we'll get a glimpse of one in an upcoming episode of this series. But that was a nickname for the War College, their mascot. But also the Academy's nicknames are the Lapwings, and the Lapwing, it was an endangered species from the Most Toys from Next Generation. That was the one in, I think, the fourth or fifth season where Data was abducted. But and also, I think it's a good kind of thing too, where Starfleet, quite frankly, at this point is kind of a endangered species. So that's a nice tie-in to the themes of the show. Finally, the show is beautifully shot and excellently directed by Alex Kurtzman in these first two episodes. Very strong scripts from Gina Violo, the pilot, and also showrunner Noga Landau and Star Trek Picard writer Jay Maggs. I wrote the second episode, and I thought they were both very, very good. And then last, just talking about the scripts, it's just the timeliness of these shows. As far as just, again, Star Trek is always a reflection of the decade that it's airing in. And this show is no different, with the story of the Beta Zeds building a wall. I mean, where we've heard that before. and so becoming very insular. And so that is another really cool thing that I saw highlighted in the story. Also, just the conflict that Akeem was feeling as far as her child separations because of policy, and as far as in Admiral Vance even talked about how the policy was very rough at the time, and reflecting that with her decision to separate Caleb from his mother, whatever when she handed down that sentence. So Star Trek has always done that. Don't say Star Trek. Don't give me the woke bullshit, because Star Trek has always done this. Because you think about A Private Little War that I mentioned earlier in this video, that was this commentary on the Vietnam War back in the 60s. And then, of course, Star Trek Enterprise was a reflection of being shot right after 9/11, and some of the things, especially, and with the storylines and themes of a post-attack on Earth, and what we saw with the Xindi and the third season of Star Trek Enterprise. So Star Trek's always used real-world events as a backdrop to tell story. So that is something that's baked into the DNA of the show. So those were just a couple quick observations about storytelling. And then last, as I close, there is this one quick news item as far as this week. Pluto Television, which is a streaming platform, has 5 pop-up channels for Star Trek this month for the Next Generation, Original Series, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise. Enterprise will be rolling off at the end of January, but you can catch all those shows for free on the Pluto channel right now, especially given that Star Trek is like leaving Netflix if you're in a lot of markets. So this is a good opportunity for you to catch some shows before the end of January. Also, you can watch the first episode of Starfleet Academy on Pluto for free, as well as the Paramount Plus YouTube channel. So those are all the quick news items that I have for this week. But now I want to hear from you. What was your favorite moment from the premiere? Are you excited for the future of Starfleet Academy, Starfleet as an institution within the show, and Starfleet and Star Trek itself? As I'm very excited, and I want to know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. So be sure to leave one. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more thoughts and news on Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, and also just general Star Trek news and other shows that we're talking about here on the channel. We're going to be starting A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and we're also discussing Fallout. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, live long and prosper.